never again are we going to allow anybody who never participated in any of the processes leading to the election to declare the winner of the election. INEC says, oh, we didn't transmit result because there were some technical hitches. Okay. What of the results collated by your agents? What of your form ECAT? Have you done the collation so that you can then go to the court? I won the election and not the guy declared by INEC. That is the way election petitions are handled. But if you didn't do that, and judges have to rely on evidence adduced before them and give a decision, you're not going to get engaged in the PDP-APC, business. Because both political parties, to be honest, have demonstrated contempt for the Electoral Act and total disregard for judgments and orders of court. So if people are caught in their own game, it is absolutely irresponsible to blame the judiciary. That is not to say that there are no problems, but to politicize the judgments would be, for me, very escapist. We must take them one by one. And we're talking about 4 judgments now. We had elections in 31 states. Governorship election in March this year. We're talking of 4 governorship election results that have been upturned by the court. 2 involving or affecting the PDP, 1 MPP, and the other one APC. So it's not about which party is right or which party is wrong or the allegations. But what also bothers me, Charles, is the sheer hypocrisy of those who cause these problems for the country. I was reading a former head of state this morning. I couldn't believe. A former head of state who declared an election a do or die battle in this country, whose party said whether anybody liked it or not, his party was going to be in power for 100 years.
Well, actually, let's remove 40 years from that.
No, they later reduce it to 60 years. But the point I'm making is that we need to be honest with ourselves. And when leaders are wrong, and they have now learned, from the colossal mistakes they made when they were in power, they must also say, please, this is my experience. But when you now come out to say, oh, this democracy won't work. You were in power for 8 years, it worked for you. Or another leader, I've read another one, this judiciary is this. This was a guy who said, we were fixing elections. In 2003, we were fixing elections. I had to persuade my president, please, let us concede a state governed by my friend. Don't let's read that one. Now, the same people, the same characters insult Nigerians very greatly when they now reduce everything to, this one is in power, therefore they are using the judiciary. Please, for goodness sake, we also must look at the way these election petitions are prepared and handled. These judges didn't witness elections because they are posted to outside their regions. Now, you now bring evidence before them. Charles, I say that I won an election. Right? INEC says, we didn't transmit result because there were some technical hitches. Okay. What of the results collated by your agents? What of your form ECAT? Have you done the collation so that you can then go to the court? I won the election and not the guy declared by INEC. That is the way election petitions are handled. But if you didn't do that, and judges have to rely on evidence adduced before them and give a decision, you cannot blame the judges. Secondly, as in the case of Plateau, and this is not the first time, if the court gives a decision, sorry, you have not conducted a valid primary. You ignore the judgment of the court and proceed to take part in the general election. And at the end of the day, you are being told that you can't claim to have won an election because there was no primary. If there is no primary, you can't have a valid election.
Right.
So but that is different from Kano.
Yeah, no, I
And that's
understand.
why you have to take them one by one.
Yes, absolutely. I agree with you. Since you brought up
Samfara, it's not been concluded. The judge said 3 local governments go and conclude elections in those 3 local governments.
since you brought up Plateau State, let's deal with that first. Governor Muftwang got the most votes and actually won the election. But it ended up being a qualification matter, and whether it is pre or a post-election matter. Do you think Governor Muftwang has strong grounds for appeal to the Supreme Court?
Again,
you don't want to get into that.
It's going to be difficult to predict, but going by the decisions of our courts,
Right.
once a matter is in court and a judgment has been given, go and hold a valid primary. You ignore the judgment and proceed to hold an election. You have to convince the court that I have my justification for treating the orders of court with contempt. So if you cannot do that, there is a problem. There is a problem. Because every election, and then it is because people were imposing candidates on the electorate that the idea of primary came up, and that everybody must participate in a primary.
So the issue of the way the PDP was running its affairs in Plateau State comes into play. I mean, it seems from what you're saying bizarre that the PDP would present someone who is not qualified as their candidate, who gets voted in, only to be booted out by the courts.
You see, again, it can be either way. And this political party celebrates the judiciary when they win elections. In the case of Osun State, Oyetola and INEC, when that decision was handed down by the Supreme Court, people were dancing. And what happened there? The Supreme Court held that you need to produce beavers machines in the court. You need to, and it's not compulsory for INEC to transmit election results. And I think it was a minister, I think it was Mr. Festus Keyamo that said, oh, you guys are celebrating now. You may regret later. Now, when the presidential election, the tribunal, gave his decision, some of the lawyers who had canvassed in Osun State were also now asking the lower tribunal to overrule the Supreme Court. So we must look at the role of our lawyers, the role of politicians, and the courts before we can just simply dismiss the courts.
No, I understand that. But are there any elements of political bias that you detect with the opposition political parties accusing the judiciary of killing democracy? Do they have any point? I mean, I know you said both sides do it.
You see, I am very, very critical
of
judgments that subvert the democratic process. And I insist that the democratic wishes of the people must be respected at all times. Right? In this country, a guy his name was never on the ballot. He was never even in the country on the day of election. The Supreme Court held that he was deemed to have won the election, and the PDP went to town to celebrate. So that was 2007. That was how we began this dangerous journey of a few judges subverting the wishes of the people by interpreting the law. So, and what we have to do, just like the case of Rivers, never again are we going to allow anybody who never participated in any of the processes leading to the election to declare the winner of the election. We must now take cognizance of the errors that have been made this time around. And I'm happy the Senate has held a retreat, I think in New York, a few weeks back, where they resolved, and we're going next time around, we are rushing to the Parliament with the concurrence of the House of Reps to now make transmission of resource compulsory. We have also suggested the judgment of the Supreme Court, where it was said that beavers machines be produced in court. It's going to be very cumbersome and sometimes almost impossible. If I'm challenging elections in about 50,000 polling units, which court hall will accommodate 50,000 beavers machines? So we are saying, rely on the report generated by the beavers machines, which can be, supervised by the agents of all the political parties that took place in an election. But we must also go back to the ways, recommendations, which were largely adopted by the 2014 National Conference, adopted by the Ahmed Lemu Committee, adopted by the Ken Namani Committee, so that we can begin to hold the election.